Welcome back to Best of the Podcasts, Film Fights with Friends.
I didn't know where the fuck you were going with that, man.
You didn't know, but that's because we have...
I think that's because you didn't fucking know either.
It's been a long day, dude. It's been a long day.
I am Paul Veracci.
And I'm Stephen Kepper, and this is a Film Fights with Friends.
Thanks for joining us, guys.
Yeah.
We have an absolutely awesome fucking episode today. Emphasize on awesome fucking episode because we have Robert Radler, the director of Best of the Best.
1 and 2.
Yeah.
And 3? I don't know. I thought not 3, but he mentioned 3.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe all 3.
Who knows? All I know is that, like a lot of us that are in the stunt industry, this was the movie that made us want to get into stunts and get into fighting and get into martial arts.
Dude, like I told him on the show, like we've had so many guests come through this show that mentioned Best of the Best as an inspirational moment for them.
Yep.
Dude, and for me too, man. It was that first movie that treated martial arts like a sport.
Mm-hmm.
And I just could completely relate to it. Like I always tell people, this movie, like people will mention like Karate Kid as a pivotal point for like martial arts if they're from that generation or whatever. But this one for me.
Yeah, but the difference was that with Best of the Best, the moves that they did and the fighting, it was fighting. It didn't seem like it was choreographed.
Well, that's because you had two brothers beating the crap out of each other.
Right. Yeah. But then even in the other fights, like the choreography was brutal, but it was point based.
Yep.
But it was also done in a way where it wasn't the
yeah.
You know, there wasn't a metronome anywhere in any of those fights.
In all honesty, there was more of that in Best of the Best too.
Yes, absolutely there was.
And there was the Best of the Best 1 fights still hold up for me as very authentic.
Mm-hmm.
Very authentic. Mm-hmm. Like so good. And me being at that time in 1989, a Taekwondo guy myself, it was just like, oh my God, this is like made for us.
Mm-hmm.
It was so good. So I can't wait for you guys to hear this episode. And we tell a very funny story in the martini shot that didn't make it into the episode that was shared by Robert with us.
And if you're not a paying Patreon member, even if you do it just for the month, it's worth it.
Yeah. The martini shot is the Patreon member only content along with our cutting room floor segments. So if you're not a supporter on Patreon, please consider it, because then aside from all the other stuff, aside from the swag and the giveaways and the shout outs and all the cool things you can get, you also get the cutting room floor segment, which is very cool B-roll and video that our guests send us that never make it to the final episode. And also the martini shot, which is me and Paul waxing poetic about the interview that we just completed.
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't want to hear us ramble for another 10 minutes, maybe don't.
But hey, if you do, and you want to pay for it.
Listen, seriously, you Patreon supporters are the lifeblood of this show. That's what helps us carry through with our day-to-day bills and just, all the little fees that come up with hosting stuff and running LLCs and all that kind of stuff and buying new mixing boards and things like that. So all the stuff that makes this show happen, the nuts and bolts of it, is thanks to the Patreon members. And, of course,
our sponsors. Breakfall Studios.
Which is us.
We
sponsor ourselves. You want to rent this place behind us? Hit us up. It's there.
Mm-hmm.
Seriously, we've rented to a lot of people. We've had a lot of productions in here. Paramount, FX, Spike TV back in the day when Spike was around.
AB or NBC? One of the BCs?
We had CBS here.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, CBS shot here.
It was a CB, just I didn't know what order.
But there's a reason why I think people like working with us. So if you want to come here and rent the space for auditions or teach a workshop or use it as a location, hit us up for sure.
Definitely. And my favorite, Stunt Contact.
Yeah, Stunt Contact, you rock. You've supported us from the beginning. Anybody out there in the industry that needs the best breakdown service. It is Stunt Contact. It's obviously
The who, what, when, where, and why of the business.
it seems like it would be directed solely at stunt performers, but honestly, it's useful for everyone.
Mhm.
Everyone. If you're a PA and you want to know what's shooting in your neck of the woods, they list every production, whether it's just in development, whether it's in pre-production, whether it's in production, that just the whole gambit. And it's so great. I mean, I definitely send emails weekly.
Mhm.
But what's even better is if you're a listener of this show, you can get a 25% discount on the daily subscription or a 15% discount off the weekly.
If you enter the discount code FFWFPOD.
Holy fuck, you got it right.
I can read sometimes.
FF is Film Fights with Friends Pod. FFWFPOD discount code, and you can get those discounts with your subscription. We highly, highly suggest it. If you've never subscribed to Stunt Contact, try it out. If you already do and you're coming up for renewal, use our discount for renewal. You get a cheaper rate, and you'll let them know that you actually listen to us and that their support of us is worth it. You know? But Stunt Contact's great. We love Stunt Contact.
And then if you just want to show us out for a little bit of free and not have to pay any money, you can give us some likes and follows and subscribes.
Reviews.
And reviews. We love the reviews. We'll talk about your reviews. If you have any comments, we'll bring them up on the show.
Yeah, absolutely. You can review us on IMDb. That really helps with the search engines out there. And then also on Apple Podcasts, you can review us. But you can comment on Spotify. You can comment on YouTube, on our Instagram, on our TikTok.
Mm-hmm.
We love engagement from you guys. We will read them. You heard a whole bunch of in our last episode. We went over a whole bunch of engagement over the How Not to Get Into Stunts episode. That generated a lot of engagement.
Yep.
Yeah. So please, if you comment, we will, give you a shout out on the show for sure, good or bad.
Yeah. Or if you watched an episode and maybe you have a question that wasn't answered and you're curious about, a specific aspect of the industry that had to do with it, just ask us, guys, and we'll come back and we'll answer it during a future episode.
Yeah. You can email us at fightingwithfriendspod@gmail.com and get on our mailing list as well.
And let's get into this episode.
I think that's it. We need to bring in Robert Radler right now.
Let's go.
Dude, Robert Radler, we are so super psyched to have you on the show today.
Thank you so much for taking the time to come on, man.
No worries. My pleasure.
Yeah. I mean, we've had so many guests on the show cite Best of the Best as an inspirational moment for them, myself included, because
and me.
I was literally at that time in '89 studying Taekwondo, and that was the first martial arts movie that wasn't filled with all the sort of kind of Asian mysticism and all that kind of hocus pocus stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And it just channeled the part of me that wanted to be a coach and that wanted to look at this like a real sport.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I mean, I'm a kid who was raised on Miracle, watching the U.S. Olympic team beat the Soviets, and it just channeled all this amazing stuff. And I was like, wow, this is really making martial arts real to me. And it just hit all the right buttons on me, man.
Glad to hear it. My dad was a boxer, and frankly, I was not a giant fan of the Chopsaki movies. I saw lots of them. I don't remember most of the names, but I always loved martial arts in one way or another, and especially, we lived in Brooklyn when I was growing up near Coney Island, and my dad organized all the kids in the neighborhood to have boxing matches. Got us these big gloves, and we'd beat the crap out of each other. And that was my introduction into pugilistic arts.
Oh, that's awesome.
And it stayed with me. My dad would watch the fights, in black and white on TV, and I'd sit there with him, and he'd talk me through it. And so when Phillip Rhee came along, I really jumped at the opportunity, even though I wasn't a martial arts expert. What made it possible for me to make this film was that I had been a director and an editor for years, and my editing skills enabled me to capture these fights the way they need to be captured, and know when to move on to the next scene because I had the scenes in my head.
Well, it was really great. I just want to say, because you just went into the way you were shooting the fights, and Steve and I were actually talking about this. We loved the way that these fights were shot because it's so not often, even now when you watch action movies, that the hit from kind of start to finish is the the center of the entire shot. There's no kind of magic to sell a beginning and an end to have an entry look cool. It's just a straight strike, and the way you work the camera to just make it work from beginning to end was kind of just wonderful and had never really been seen before. As they were all just kind of like into the more of the sequence of all of the moves, the ha 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 ha, and going through it. So I was really, I just loved the way that watching this fight was kind of also seeing a fight like that from the first.
I mean, and the camera was so mobile. That's
Yeah.
to me, the camera was so mobile.
They
It's
were
like
so
these,
big back then. How do you
these
get it in there?
these fast
Yeah,
zooms and these fast pullouts, and it was amazing.
I'm glad you mentioned that because there were no GoPros, there was nothing portable.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What it was I would shoot masters of the fights, from 2 or 3 cameras usually, but focusing on one master shot, and then gradually go in tighter and tighter and tighter. And the guy who made this possible was a guy named Jerry Watson, who was our camera operator for some of this. Jerry got many black eyes.
Mhm.
When you're doing those point of view shots, when you're in a fight and you're fighting with with real fighters, he had no fear. He'd get right in there, and very often his camera would get kicked, and when that would happen, it would kick him in the eye. So he spent much of Best of the Best one with a black eye. And when it got better, we did it again. And
Especially with the Rhee brothers, because keeping up with them must
Right?
have been insane.
you know, I can't take too much credit for some of the elements of the fight because the Rhee brothers are extraordinary. They're extraordinarily disciplined guys, whether it's fighting or other aspects of life. It was great to work with those guys on my first film.
And they are the brothers, and they've been doing it together. You know what I mean? The two of them.
Yes,
So they were probably had a rhythm and a touch
they're dance
like
partners.
no, yeah, exactly, like no other, right? They probably could shoot stuff that only the two of them could shoot so closely and so perfectly.
And there were times, like in Best One, where Simon actually kicked Phillip in the face. I mean, on purpose.
Yeah.
There's a shot there where Phillip's head turns around and the sweat flies off his hair and all of that. We actually set up for Simon to kick him in the face. Now, most actors don't do that. And
Yeah.
most actors can't do that safely. But these guys were so accurate. It was extraordinary. When Phillip first came to me, he showed me a TV show he did where he was demonstrating his accuracy with a blindfold on. He could punch a half an inch from your nose. And he was so good, and they were so practiced. What I didn't know is they could also act.
Right.
So, yeah, I can't take too much credit for the fights because they really choreographed them. What I did is I set them in locations, I set the shots, and I made the shots work. I made those hits read, but that's not all my fault. The stuntmen that the Rhee brothers brought in were really good guys, like Kane Hodder and guys like that, the guy who played Jason in those
Mhm.
horror movies. Really great group of guys and made my life easier.
I mean, you had mentioned that you had watched like prior like martial art movies and things and didn't pay too much attention, but I'm curious because because this was that finale fight especially was so, at least for me, it was so different than what was typically out there. Was that just a function of you not paying attention to what was done before, or was that a function of you not wanting to do what was done before?
Not wanting to do, nor did anybody else. We all wanted to make something closer to an A movie.
Mhm.
Um, but I also studied things like Raging Bull and Rocky. I mean, had it not been for Rocky, this would have been a gigantic hit, I think.
Right.
But looking at the shots in Raging Bull, if you study that, I think you'll see it reflected in Best of the
Mm,
Best.
interesting.
And I tried to take it to the next level if I could, but they had a lot more time and a lot more money.
Sure.
Nevertheless, I think we got the fights about as good as we could have. And what was funny is with all the lighting we did for the final fights and Best of the Best, I think we're in the Patriot Hall or Patriotic Hall in downtown LA where they used to stage the Olympics, I think. Um, the shot that really sold it all is when we turned all the lights off and only used a follow spot for the
Hmm.
final kicks for where Phillip doesn't kill Dehan. Uh,
Mhm.
Right.
and that made it very, very dramatic. And that was our DP, Doug Ryan's idea. I might say something about him.
Please. Yeah.
Doug Ryan is a good buddy of mine. He's surfing in Hawaii right now. He shot. He was the camera operator on Apocalypse Now,
Oh wow.
and he also shot a Jackson Brown video with me, Tender is the Night, and was able to do music video. Was able to do some stuff with the camera that back then we didn't have autofocus, but on a 600 millimeter lens, he could hold focus with Jackson walking towards us in a crowd of 100 people. Uh, his camera skills were just great. He shot Mrs. Coppola's movie, Heart of Darkness, about making
Apocalypse.
Apocalypse Now.
Yeah.
And he's just an interesting guy. He was in Vietnam. He's a good guy to go into battle with. He was captain. Um, and tremendously emotional about the work he does. I mean, there was a point where Eric Roberts got mad at me, and I don't remember what scene it was, but I wasn't giving enough input. I was a first-time director, and he was an accomplished actor, and I wasn't giving him enough input between takes. And I was looking at it all on my monitor, and I was sitting back because I was a little afraid of Eric. Uh, and Doug came up to me, grabbed me by the collar, and he said, "Get your ass down in front of the actors, put that monitor down, and start doing your job." And, of course, I was offended, but then I went and did it.
Mhm.
And that was a model for the rest of it. I gave Eric much more support. I didn't hide behind the monitor. I got in there and got the kind of performances that I wanted. I did let Eric chew the scenery a little bit in number one because it was hard to stop it. And
Well, yeah, it was a very he was very emotional. I was saying before, it reminded me a lot, and I don't know if this was intentional or not, but especially rewatching it, like so much of it seemed similar to Officer and Gentleman
Mm.
with except replace the US team with Officer Candidate School. And there's that scene with Lou Gossett Jr. and Richard Gere, where he's trying to get back into Officer Candidate School, and Lou Gossett Jr. is just turning his back to him and doesn't want to hear any. It reminded me so much of the scene where Eric Roberts is trying to get back on the team, and James Earl Jones is like having nothing to do with it. And even the whole "I've got nowhere else to go" speech, I was like, wow, that's like right out of Officer and Gentleman.
maybe it was. There were certain derivative elements in that script, and very often I objected to them. For instance, when the son, played by Edon Gross, threw away his crutches and ran into on.
Chucky, by the way. Voice of good Chucky, for those of you who don't
Oh.
know. That kid, like, sorry, but the horror nerd in me has got to just throw that out there. That kid is the voice of the good Chucky in all the Chucky movies.
Oh,
I
cool! I
didn't
had no
know
idea.
that.
Yeah.
He,
So
he was a really good young actor, and he looked younger than he actually was. So he was more mature than you might think.
right.
Um, but
So he
uh,
throws the crutches. You were saying he throws.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I begged them to not let me shoot that scene. I said he's going to throw away the crutches. What is this, Easter seals? And it
It's a
was just like,
revival, a tent revival camp.
yeah, exactly, and it was just like too sappy for me and too over the top. But but it works, and the film affected so many people. I tell you what killed me is in Framingham, Massachusetts, where I grew up. I went to the movies and I watched Best of the Best. And on the way out, I said to one of the ushers, "Hey, that was a pretty good movie, wasn't it?" He said, "Yeah, it's a bit weepy for me." And I thought I had failed, because I
Right.
thought I had let it get out of control that way. But as it turns out, People cried in the last scene, and people.
Just watching it again for the umpteenth time, it
Mhm.
was still my wife was making fun of me and like, she's, "You crying?" I'm like, "Yeah, can't help it."
Ah, no. Okay, it worked. Never mind.
Yeah, yeah.
And it definitely worked, especially okay, I'm just gonna be an ass. Everything between Dahan and his brother worked, like, because I have a brother and we've got our shit and, whatever, like, it just hit every heartstring that there was. And for me to stay in it, I had to assume that that's why Eric Roberts was upset.
Yeah, but
Because
Eric
otherwise, I couldn't figure out why he was so he was so damn emotional.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. If I did these things with my brother, he'd sue me. There would be no punching up.
But I mean, but this is but you mentioned this is your first feature and it's your first time these I guess this level of actors. I
And I've
mean,
heard Eric Roberts is a force too on set.
Oh, yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, James Earl Jones.
Holy
Jeez.
shit, we didn't even go there yet.
Yeah, Eric can be intimidating. He wouldn't be anymore these days, but back then, when it was my first movie and I had a lot to prove,
Mhm.
I didn't want to fight with him. I wanted to give him what he needed. There were times when he and Sally Kirkland really didn't hit it off, and I had to spend hours in Sally's trailer crying along with her because
Mm.
Eric was mean. I mean, there are things a director does that you never learn in film school. I'm a film professor at times,
Yep.
not at the moment, but I wanted to teach a class called What They Don't Teach You in Film School.
Right.
And what they don't teach you in film school is you spend at least a third of your time being a psychiatrist for
Right.
actors,
Mhm.
and just getting to the next step, because there can be a day on the set where people are hitting each other physically and not getting along, but as a director, nobody knows when they see the film what was actually happening on the set and how hard it was to make your day that way, because people were acting crazy. Nevertheless, you needed to get performances out of them.
Sure.
But my training was in documentaries, and I taught, I directed non-actors forever. So I would say Simon and Phillip weren't seasoned actors, but they were seasoned brothers, and it
Yeah.
was easy to put people at ease and to get the performances I needed. With guys like Eric, yes, it was intimidating, and a guy like him can intimidate other actors too. Sometimes on purpose, sometimes not. But it's all part of his rigmarole, his training, his psyche, and it's all part of him getting into the character. The
Sure.
hard part was having him play a good guy, because he's not as practiced at that as he is at playing a bad guy. When he did Star 80 and he played the guy who killed the playmate Dorothy Stratton,
Mhm.
my wife was part of that. She worked for Playboy, and she was um, the person who helped prep Dorothy Stratton for the kind of stardom she had as a playmate,
Oh, wow.
and knew the characters. And when she saw Eric playing the guy who killed Dorothy, it flipped her out, because
Wow.
Eric had turned into that person. Getting Eric to play the father of a young son just learning to ride a bicycle wasn't hard, but that's not his go-to place.
Right. Right.
So it was kind of an uphill battle a little bit, but we got there.
So you mentioned
It's also I feel at least when I've done stuff on film, when showing anger is a little bit easier than showing compassion, empathy, and all of the things that go involved with being a father. That shit's got to be hard to do on film.
And especially when you're not a father. If
Mm.
you
Yeah.
are a father, you just use your own experiences to fall back on.
Right.
But this was different. But,
Mm.
we got there. He's such a good actor, man, that you could give him anything to play and he could do it.
So now on that, there are also other actors who work a little bit differently, who say that when they show up on set, the director should only be telling you to stand here, stand there, and stand that. They shouldn't be telling you how to play your character. That's part of your job, and you should come with that. And if they want a little bit of an adjustment, Did you work with anyone that was kind of on that other side on that? And was it kind of weird to play two parts, to play two people when you talk to different
The
as a director? You have to do
the actors only read their own roles.
that. Mhm.
When they read a script, they don't read the other roles. I'm exaggerating, but not
Right.
really.
Right.
So left to their own devices, most actors individually lose the bigger picture.
Mhm.
And if a director just lets them go off and do their thing the way they've done it before, that actor may not understand what the director is looking to do 4 scenes from now. So once you let uh, an actor do his or her own thing, if it's wrong, I mean, you want them to do that, and you want as much input as you can get from them. You want them to feel comfortable. You want to answer their questions. But if you let them go off and do their own thing, you lose control of the production.
Mhm.
And I got to tell you, on every film I've ever done, and I mean my features, but also my every other film I've ever done, there's somebody who wants to be the director that's not you. So
Yeah.
sometimes you have to take a stand. I had to do that with Treat Williams at one point. He was giving me a lot of trouble, uh, and um, and uh, and I had to finally kind of put him against the wall and say, "Look, if you want to direct this, I'll just leave."
Mm.
Yeah.
And you'll
Yeah.
be left to your own devices. But you have to let me do my thing, and here are the issues we need to resolve. And he was great. He was a real pro. He came in the next day and started saying, "Hey, I'm with you. I understand it's a director's medium," and he started carrying cases around and helping us move from location to location. But you have to stake out your claim to be the director, or somebody else will, and you lose control of the show.
And it's so funny that, you hear you listen to other interviews with other people and other actors, I'll just say. I think this one was with Benicio del Toro or whoever, and they were talking about reading the scripts and shooting out of order and saying that that's the way Hollywood works, and if you kind of wanna be prepared, you should read the entire script. You should read everybody's role until you're able to read your role and know what they're doing while you're reading your role. And
And
then you can shoot anytime, any point, anywhere, and you're ready because you know exactly where you need to be at every point in the script.
Yes, and a lot of actors do that, but a lot of them don't. And
Mm.
so it's the director's job to say, look, the reason I'm asking you to act exactly the way I'm asking you is that 4 pages from now is
Mhm.
when you da 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 da. And they go, oh,
Right.
I didn't think of that. And that's what a director's job is. Having said that,
Or it could be the opposite where you're like, "No, you can't act like this because 3 pages earlier, you just lost this person, and now you're here, and you're just like, blah, blah, blah."
exactly right. And shooting out of
Mhm.
phase, out of order, always made me crazy, but that's the way it happens. My training was the Power Rangers. We would shoot 4 shows at a time. They call them clusters. I call them something
Yeah.
else. And they'd shoot 4 shows at a time, like you'd shoot towards Zordon, 4 separate shows. The actors would just change their costumes, and then you turn it around and shoot 4 shows in the opposite direction. You never knew what show you were in or where you were, but you had a really good script person to walk you through that, because you can't possibly be directing and blocking and setting shots and also remembering which episode it was. So
And then they
I had a
also
lot of
cut
training.
didn't they cut Power other episodes of other Power Rangers into the Power Rangers?
Yeah,
Wasn't it like the editing process was 2 shows, right?
it was a Japanese show. The
Yeah.
monster stuff they shot in Japan. They sent it over here, and we essentially wrote a show around the existing monster footage. But we had the monsters too, and so we glommed on to what they had already shot, which is why they feel a little disjointed
Mhm.
at times. And what they really are is commercials for the Zords that they were selling to people like my son.
Yeah. Yeah.
By the way,
That's
my
awesome.
son was a little guy when I was directing Power Rangers, and for about a year he thought I was the coolest dad in the world, because I'd take him to the set and put him in the prop room, and I'd let him into the monster costumes. And one time he was standing there playing with some of the props, and a python wound itself around his legs,
Oh my
because there
gosh.
was a live python in the prop room that was about
That's so
12
funny.
feet long.
Oh my god.
I'm thinking about that scene with Bobcat Goldthwait in One Crazy Summer when he gets in the Godzilla suit and the guy throws the cigar in there and he just like
Yeah, not funny. I mean, that's a real fear.
Yeah,
Shooting shows like that.
But you mentioned that you've gone and taught what they don't you wanted to teach or what they don't teach you in film school. But you went to film school or you left film school. I read somewhere you were at NYU, correct?
I was for a semester.
Oh,
It was a terrible time for NYU. The homeroom teacher, for lack of a better thing, her credentials was I think that she had adjusted Barbara Streisand's collar once,
oh gosh.
which was not impressive
mm.
to me. I wasn't learning a damn thing. I'd already made a feature-length Super 8 sound movie.
But you could make the tie and the buttons line up.
Yeah. It's not easy. And the other thing was the camera teacher at NYU at the time. They had like 2 cameras for 300 students. And
Yeah.
I said, why don't you get some Super 8 cameras or something, which would be the equivalent of just shooting on your iPhone at the time,
Sure.
and so that we can all shoot, not just wait for a camera and have it for 6 hours.
Right.
And the camera teacher got mad at me. And when he saw that I could load an Aeroflex S like in 2 seconds, he goes, why can you load Aeroflex S? How do you learn this? And it's like, it's not hard, man. It's like I was not having fun at that school. And I did one very surreal, sexually symbolic movie, which I hope nobody ever sees. But I will share with you two. But I just wasn't learning anything. And what happened was in homeroom class at NYU, the teacher said, would anybody like to do an after school job for a very noted New York documentarian, a guy named Gene Searchinger, who became my mentor. May he rest in peace. And 42 hands went up. We all wanted that job. They sent me and Marty Brest, you'll remember who he is, the very successful director, to meet with Gene. And Gene really liked me, and he said, Jesus, I wish you weren't in school. I could use you full time. As it turned out, Gene had spent the last 2 years unemployed looking for work, and now he had 6 documentaries to do, and he really needed help. And he said, boy, if you could work full time. And I said, I quit film school. I went to work for him. I learned more the first day I worked for him than I learned in a semester at NYU.
Yeah.
And as it turned out, the head of the NYU Film School at the time and I were working as equals on a set a few months after that. So I think I did the right thing.
Seems like it.
I did the same thing. When I found out I had enough credits to graduate and I had my internship after school, I just left school and took my internship as a full-time job.
Yeah, I didn't see that going anyplace. And I think the school has gotten much better since then, but when I was there, not great.
I mean, that's obviously what got you into documentaries. And then you also, before Best of the Best, you were doing music videos. You're a guitar player yourself, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, and you've done some legendary videos. I mean, we're talking legendary videos.
Just because you used to be a guitar player, I'm like, I used to be Jimmy Buffett's personal chef.
No shit. I mean, no kidding.
Yep. That's all right. I swear on the show all the
time. We should talk about that.
For sure.
In the Palace, were you one of them? Love to hear the stories. I miss him.
Yeah, me too. He was a really nice guy.
Yeah, Paul, you were living out at his place out.
Yeah, I was living with him and his family out in Sag Harbor.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it was awesome. I was staying with his pilot in the guest house for a while.
That is terrific. What a life experience. You need to write a book.
I'm like, it's great. I have a guitar. He signed my guitar my last night there. He signed my guitar and it said, to Paul, he goes, play as good as you cook, fins up. And then he drew me a shark fin in an ocean.
Oh, that is sweet.
Yeah.
Wow.
I knew you guys would I knew we'd come to this moment in this show when you guys would connect on the music.
And one of my really good friends that is Derek Trucks and Susan Tedeschi, the Tedeschi Trucksman. He's their head sound engineer.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Those two are beyond
amazing, right?
Yeah, I wish I had them in the film, but
Those are the other two signatures I have on my guitar.
I could have had BB King, but I was too intimidated to bring.
I read an interview with you talking about Turn It Up, the documentary, the electric guitar documentary, talking about getting to hang with BB King. I'm a huge blues fan. I grew up playing in blues bands like through my youth and all the way through grad school. I play piano. And BB King, one of my all-time, well, everybody's all-time favorite, but I remember getting to see him at the JVC Jazz Festival back in like 85 or 86 or something. He's just such an it's just such an amazing personality just to see on stage. I can't imagine getting to spend time with him, talking with him, and just being in the presence of whatever, that enigmatic personality had to offer.
Yeah, when you meet a great person, it stays with you, and it doesn't matter if it's sports or guitar playing or politics. You can just tell there's something special going on there that transcends explanation. And my time with him was extraordinary. I don't know if you want to hear this story, but I'll tell it as quick as I can.
Oh, of course we do.
Yeah, we want to hear it for sure.
I should have known that. I was told that he would be at the Chumash Casino, which is kind of near where I live, about an hour away. But I would have 20 minutes with him and not a second more. They would drag me out of his bus at 20 minutes and 1 second. I would be physically extracted from the bus. And I was also told that his handlers were really pricks. So I expected the worst. And so I went into that not expecting much. And they also told me, you're just going to get the same interview everybody else gets. He's interviewed 10,000 times and you're just going to hear all the same shit. So I decided to do something about that. And before I interviewed him, and this is a good lesson for directors, I read his autobiography. And I learned some personal things. And what I'm about to tell you is his words, not mine. I didn't make up this off-color story. But, we're sitting there. I'm brought into the back of his tour bus. The motor is running under us. It's rumbling. And he's sitting there. And how can I help you, son? And I said, well, before we start about the guitar, Mr. King, I have a question. And it's really bothering me. I read your autobiography. And he said, yes, what can I do for you? What can I explain? I said, well, how did you lasso Mr. Wright's testicles? And he looked at me with this quizzical look on his face. And then his mouth began to smile. And then he started to laugh. And then he started to belly laugh. And then he held his stomach. And then he fell over on the couch he was sitting on. And I had him. I got an hour and a half of an interview, and we talked about everything. And in fact, if you buy the Turn It Up DVD, which nobody does anymore, or Blu-ray, there's a second disc, which are my extended interviews with the stars. I just had to do that because otherwise they'd be lost to history. And essentially, I'll say this real quick. He told the story of a suitor who would come to visit his mother. And his name was Mr. Wright, and every time he came to visit, he'd kick the cat. And they all loved the cat, and they hated Mr. Wright, all the kids. And he'd sit there and he'd woo the mother. And so BB decided he would attach a fishing line to the cat and the other side to Mr. Wright's testicles. And that when he kicked the cat, that he'd get the surprise of his wife. And I just couldn't understand how he could do this. So he explained it to me. He said, Mr. Wright was a sharecropper. He had bad pants. His junk was hanging out below his pants.
Oh my!
And he had no underwear on, and he was sitting on a cane chair that had holes in it, so that they were hanging down under
It's like the scene from Casino Royale when he was smacking his nuts with the fucking thing.
Oh my God!
Now I'm going to cry. Anyway, he explained this to me with a straight face, very technically, and he said, "I crawled under there. It was a thin fishing line, and I tightened it up, and he got the surprise of his life." Now,
Oh
who
my.
the hell knows if this is true or not? But for the rest of that interview, his handlers kept coming in and saying, "The band is playing on stage, Mr. King," and he would shoo him away. And they vamped on stage for like half an hour before he got out there. We were having so much fun.
Oh my God, that's hysterical.
That's funny.
Directors, do your homework. Do your
Yeah.
research. Prep.
Dude, my brother told me this story one time about his buddy hitting himself in the nuts when he was wearing corduroy pants and he was trying to light his fart on fire, and he lit some of the fibers in his crotch, went up, and he freaked out and he was drunk. So the first thing he did was slap out the fire and he just cracked himself in the nuts.
I don't know why this nutshot discussion it is reminding me of the scene in Best of the Best 2, right? Where Phillip Rhee is about to get his neck cracked
Oh yeah.
and he sees Tommy, I guess coming through the broken window and then
Mhm.
hits the bad boss in the nuts to escape.
Yes, whatever it takes. But
Yeah.
speaking of nuts, the person who had the hardest time is poor Simon Rhee. In Best of the Best 1, you remember the scene where we go to Korea and he's in such a
Under the
blizzard
waterfall?
in the
Yeah.
waterfall. That
What's your favorite
waterfall,
scene?
it was 33 degrees.
It
Oh
looked
my
cold.
Simon was crying.
You could
And
see them. They were all like,
Yeah, that's not a blue screen or a volume. That's real water he's under.
that's real water, and there was no way to even warm them up after that. We were like in the demilitarized
This
zone.
shit wasn't like the Titanic. You had like warm baths for everybody on the side.
Maybe we did, but I can't remember that. Actually, that day in Korea, I think, was the last day of the shoot, and I was sick by that point. I was just completely exhausted. I had the flu or something. We drove for hours to get to where that waterfall was, in the middle of a blizzard, a snow blizzard, and military exercises. The American Army was on the road in South Korea. Like, I've never seen that much of the American Army before in America.
Wow.
Every other car was American armies, missiles, troop transports. And we went to this place where we had to walk through the woods. There was a tent in the middle of the woods in South Korea, and blaring from that tent was Simon and Garfunkel's Sounds of Silence. And I thought that was so weird, but so cool at the same time. And that's
Right.
where we did the Simon stuff. But the other thing I wanted to say is every time we'd practice something, we'd practice with pugil sticks or practice a move, Simon would get it in the nuts every time. I mean, that man gave for these movies. And I can't say enough about him. He's one of the kindest, smartest, most gentle, toughest human beings I've ever met. And Phillip is the same. They have very different personalities, but I was
Sure.
really kind of blessed to do my first film with two guys like that. We're still friends. We just had lunch together, and maybe one day there'll be a Best of the Best 5. Who knows?
Well, Steve and I were talking, and we were like, what would be a great if they did a prequel Best of the Best about Coach Kuzo.
About Koku. Yeah, I'd love to know.
That
about
would be
Kuzo.
great, and about just kind of like the prequel story of almost. You could almost do a series, kind of like a non telenovela Cobra Kai.
Yes,
But
exactly.
you could almost have all of the fighters and kind of just do an episode on their pre-story.
I would love to know Kuzo's backstory.
And yeah,
honestly. Yeah.
Yeah,
especially if it was going into Tommy's brother dying in the
in the tournament there. Yeah.
yeah.
That's a great idea. I'll share it with Philip.
Do it.
Philip,
Do
I think, controls all this now, although I'm
Yeah.
not really sure of the succession of the rights.
Right.
And I hope at some point he can pull it off. And I know he'd love to. I know we got a million fans out there who'd love to see it happen.
I mean, Simon, like you said, Simon, that was his first stunt coordinating gig, was that movie. And he's like legendary now.
I mean, I worked with him when I was doing, security on Iron Fist. Sonny was there for Simon was there for the whole last episode, I believe, of the first season. And I'll never forget, man. I just one night, it was late, it was an overnight, and I just Simon standing next to me, and we just started talking and went down the rabbit hole of best of the best and why I'm in this. This was the movie, just basically everything Steve said to you, I said to Simon in the beginning of this interview.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
said to him, and then it was very, very close to where the stunt team was practicing and whatever, and then afterwards, I just turn and I look at Hint's international team, and they're all fucking glaring at me with the stare of death. And I'm like, what did I do? And they're all like, nothing. We're all just fucking jealous because we've wanting to do that for the past 2 weeks working with Simon, and we're all just trying to be professional.
Yeah, wow.
No, I mean the guy's legendary, and James Lew too, who was on the Korean team. I mean, he won the Emmy for stunt coordination for Luke Cage. You know.
Yep, I just saw him too. We went to a Chicago tribute band concert that Simon invited me to. Phillip was there, James Lew, and it was really nice catching up. It was a Russian Chicago tribute band.
Oh wow!
Don't ask, but they were great. They're probably better than Chicago. Yeah, James is another great soul and another super talented guy. Wouldn't it be fun to work with those guys again?
Oh heck
Hope
yeah!
that happens.
And another thing that Steve and I noticed was Chris Penn. First of all, I mean, I gotta just imagine you probably have great stories working with that guy, because from everything that I've heard about working with him, he's a piece of work. And but one thing that he and I noticed is that from best of the best 1 to best of the best 2, as Steve and I are coaches, right? So we notice a lot, and it looked like he kept training.
He
From
looks
best of the best 1 to best, because when he's just sitting there in the opening scene in the ring and he's just doing a little shadow boxing, he looked so much better just in that little shadow boxing scene than he did in almost all of his scenes in best of the best 1. And I was like, there's no way he stopped. I was like, that's awesome.
He looks so comfortable in his body.
He looks so comfortable. Yeah.
In those scenes. Yeah.
I think you're probably right, but I really don't know the answer to that. Yeah, he was easier to choreograph, I think, in number 2, maybe because he was more used to it. I mean, he was an unlikely fighter to fight in and he was kind of pudgy on the first one. He didn't like to actually read the script the night before and learn the lines. He liked to make them up on the set, for which I got in a lot of trouble. Basically, the executive producer called me in and said, I saw the dailies yesterday and Chris Penn didn't say any of the words in the script. I said, yes, but he said words. I said, I worked with him to get a performance out of it because he hadn't memorized even the conjunctions in the script we wrote. And so I had to really just work to get the heart of the scene out of him in his own words. These are, again, the things they don't teach you in film school when somebody comes in unprepared. The good news is the next day, Chris came in and apologized to me, explained why. He had a very good heart, and he was a lot of fun to work with, except on the day that we were on Best of the Best 2, and he was about to re-enter the Coliseum. He shows up with Edon Gross and the Firebird they were driving, and he has to do like 3 things. He has to stop the car, turn the lights off, bring his bottle of booze, and get out. And after 9 takes, he hadn't gotten it right. He had had another bad night. And I said, hey, Chris, what is this, hard? You got to stop the car, put it in park, turn off the lights, grab your booze, and get out. And he got really mad at me, and he came at me, and we were in an alley in Las Vegas, okay? And he started yelling something like, I'm a puncher, and I'm going to kill you. So,
oh my gosh.
So the rumors about Sonny are true.
Say again?
Said the rumors are true.
Oh, they are. I mean, there'd be days he'd be perfect, okay? But there'd be days, he had a big night, like this one. And I took off down the alley, and he took up after me, yelling, I'm a puncher. And the rest of the crew took off after him to prevent him from killing me.
Oh, my gosh.
That must have been quite a scene, and I wish somebody had been filming that.
Speaking of, isn't that story that they had security on Predator, on the set of Predator, not for
for Sonny Langham.
for Sonny to keep everybody safe from Sonny. They had somebody walking around. I don't know if that's a real thing or if that's a rumor, but I know I've heard it a bunch of different times on a few different things that they basically were like, the only way we will let you hire him is if you let us have a security guard walk around with him to keep everyone else safe.
I can transition from Chris Penn into Sonny if you'd like, because Chris Penn saved my life at one point with Sonny.
Let's do it. Let's go there.
All right. I don't think anybody's ever talked about this shit before, but on the first day of Best of the Best 2, we all showed up in Boulder City, near the Hoover Dam.
I love Boulder
to
City.
shoot our first scene.
I love the Boulder City Diner. They make the best vanilla.
Well, we were at the hotel, and we were having lunch. We had just all got there, and Sonny grabbed me by the butt and was messing around with me. He was very strong. The guy was like 6'8". He's got me by the butt, and I'm trying to pull away. And there's two church ladies at the next table looking like, what is happening here? And Sonny is like coming on to me in the strangest way I've ever experienced. I don't know if he was serious or what, but he's got me by the butt, and I'm trying to, get away.
Wow.
Chris Penn walks in, sees what's going on, and takes control. He got right between us. Sonny let go, and Chris took the brunt of the rest of the problem, because
that's funny.
In the van on the way from the airport to the hotel, one of the crew members, who was like a major crew member, had uttered a whole series of anti-Semitic statements, which gave Sonny a chance to drink and to get really bent out of shape. So that Sonny I was encountering, which the first time after casting that I saw him, was very bent out of shape because he was Jewish. He was the world's largest Jewish 6'8" Indian.
I had no idea.
Married a Jewish woman and converted. And this made him crazy. So he started out in a bad mood. But mostly I had a blast working with the guy. He and I had a simpatico. We'd joke and we'd fool around, but he was a good actor. The problem came in his climactic scene in Best of the Best 2.
This is the scene where he ends up getting shot and falling over the car hood.
Yes, exactly.
Hand getting that was awesome, by the way.
The fingers getting shot off.
Probably Simon's idea, that one. But yes, he had to run towards camera and take like 9 or 12 squib hits. It was a serious
while
deal.
climbing over the car.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And those hurt. They're dangerous. And he was supposed to hold his rifle out in front of him and run, but they take off, the squibs blow out towards your hands holding the rifle. And honestly, he was afraid. He was afraid to take the squib hits. And this is, he couldn't say that because he's just too macho,
I can't fault him. I mean, come on. Yeah.
I mean, I remember, just real quick, the first time when I was in doing Krav Maga training, and they held the gun down range and had us put our hand over the top of it so you could see what it felt like if you're trying to grab a live weapon. And I remember, man, my butthole was clenched so tight the first time I put my hand over the weapon and they were going to pull the trigger, man, and I didn't feel a fucking thing. It was so not. No, but I'm just saying the anticipation, and then it was nothing. It's like, oh.
But if you've never done it before, like we've done
so nerve-wracking.
It's scary. There's a lot of stuff that we do that's frightening that people won't admit that they're nervous.
And it was a lot of them. It was all the way up his chest and all the way up to I don't know where. So he started telling me, look, man, I'll take 3 hits, but I got to hold my hands like this. And, I consulted with Simon. I'm sure, I can't really remember. And it was like, no, this is the climactic scene in the movie. He signed up to do this. He knew what he was signing up for, and he has to do it. And he wouldn't do it. And he got more and more upset and kind of irrational. So I called Marlon Staggs over, who was our very capable line producer, and I said, I'm about to yell for the first and last time in my career, by the way, on the set, and throw my coffee. So I went back out there and I just yelled, fuck it, we're cutting this scene out. Fuck you. And I threw my coffee in his general direction, in Sonny's general direction. And I had told Marlon, I'll meet you out behind the barn after I do this bit of acting. And I went back there, and Marlon came back, and I think he said something like he's already changed his mind. And I won. He decided to do it, but he was mad as hell. And that night at about 1 a.m., getting my precious sleep in Mojave, I think it was, where the train went by every 30 minutes and blew its horn for about 10 minutes. Nobody slept for 2 weeks on that show in the desert.
Like my cousin Vinny.
Yeah. All of a sudden, in my hotel room, somebody is pounding on the door with all their might and yelling, "Bob Radler, you fucked me." And I can see out the window who it is, and that every light in the motel court is coming on. And he's beating on the door so hard, I think he's going to break it down. So I pick up the phone and I call Phillip. And I say,
Well, hey.
"Could you please come here and save my life? Sonny Landham is trying to break my door down." Phillip shows up, takes Sonny away, and they go out drinking. Sonny was drunk when he came.
Just what he needs. Just what he needs.
Well, he was already there, but
Yeah.
Phillip said very wisely to me, the only person who can talk to a drunk is a drunk. So Phillip, who is not a drunk by any stretch of the imagination, went out drinking till dawn with Sonny, and they reached the simpatico because Sonny quit the film. I didn't tell you that.
Oh, wow.
After he took the hits and all of that, he quit, which wasn't a good thing. So Phillip saved our ass. He kept Sonny in the show. And Sonny came back to the show, and he was okay for the rest of the film. But it wouldn't have happened had Phillip not known how to talk to a drunk and not known how to politic enough to bring him back into the fold.
Or if you were shooting an order and that was actually his last scene.
It wasn't really. I can't remember. Yes, of course it was. He died. Well, because we shot out of order. I don't know where that's from.
So we got to talk about, you mentioned that you got your start in documentaries, and I'm so curious because you have a film coming out this year, which is the final.
It's still in 2025.
Yes, so we're recording this in 2025, but this is dropping in 2026. So
yes,
a little time warp. But yeah, in 2026 you have Superliner dropping, but that is the final in a sequence of docs about the SS United States, which fully I own. I had no idea about until you told me about it. And then I watched the documentaries, the Lady in Waiting. I watched the other two, Lady in Waiting and Made in America. And I can't wait to see this final one because I had no idea about any of this. And I have to tell you, like, kind of knowing the ending now, as it were, like what ended up happening with the SS United States, I was so sad at the end of the first one. I was so sad. So could you tell the viewers and listeners just like sort of cliff notes, what is the story and how you got involved with it? Because I read an interview where you said you were first on that ship with a BBC crew in like 75 or something.
Yes. The SS United States is the only great ocean liner ever made in the United States of America. To this day, it's the fastest ship ever built. Can our nuclear carriers go faster? Probably not, because it weighed much less and it had the same power plant. It was the prototype power plant for the nuclear carriers of today. They just boiled water with diesel instead of nuclear fission. It made 241,000 horsepower, but there's somebody in the know that told me it made more than that, and that the ship could actually go 60 miles an hour. It never did. It went 50 or very close to it, and at sea trials with 2/3 of the boilers lit. Why this was important, it was both a luxury ocean liner that could get to Europe in 3 days. Today it takes 8 to 9 on the Queen Mary 2. Burned a whole lot of diesel fuel, as much as a modern cruise ship burns in a week, in a day. Wow. Which is why it's no longer running. But it was literally, if there was ever an unsinkable ship, this was it. It had something like 26 compartments, 5 major compartments. A modern tour cruise liner has 3.
And in the documentary, they mentioned how painstaking it was to not have anything made of wood on the ship so it couldn't burn, to the point where they almost didn't allow a piano on the
Yes. The designer of the ship, William Francis Gibbs, designed 75% of our ships in World War II, had no formal training as a maritime engineer. He was trained as a lawyer but hated it. So this was his dream ship. He worked his whole year to build a 1,000-foot great American liner. And this was the space shuttle of the 50s. I saw it in about 1957. My dad took me to the luxury liner row in New York, the West Side, which was thriving at the time. I saw the Queen Mary, the Ile de France, and back then the ships were ships of state. They were England's ship or France's ship, and this was our ship. And what was really neat about it is I was a little guy looking at some really big ships, and my imagination went crazy. And looking at the Queen Mary, it looked so impressive, but it looked old. It looked stately and old. The United States looked like it was going 60 miles an hour, sitting still. The funnels were way back. It had a bow like needle sharp, and it just captivated my imagination for the rest of my life. And I never forgot that ship and what it looked like and the excitement of it. And when I came back to New York to go to the NYU grad school in filmmaking, I got on my motorcycle and I kept going to that pier, and that ship never showed up. So I started doing research in 1974 or 5 to try to find the ship. And I had a really hard time finding it until finally the Maritime Administration told me where it is and that there's no chance I could ever get on it. It had just been dehumidified. It was being kept by the Navy in case it was ever needed to transport 15,000 troops overseas.
I mean, just to interrupt, it was commissioned by the Navy, right? It was designed to be sort of a civilian ship, but capable of being a troop transport if World War III were to happen.
It's the only ship at the time, and maybe till now, that could transport 15,000 troops. It could be converted from a luxury liner to a troop ship in a day, and it could transport 15,000 troops across the Pacific and back at top speed without reprovisioning or refueling. Nothing can do
It
that.
looked like one of those sets, like one of those play sets that you can almost like open up and then change it into something else, and then it becomes it was like a living version of that.
Yeah, in World War II, the Queen Mary and the Queen Elizabeth, the great British liners, brought our troops back from the war. They were incredibly vulnerable. They couldn't go top speed or they'd run out of gas. So they were going slow with 15,000 guys crowding the decks. This ship was made to it could outrun our own destroyers. They could not keep up. So it was a dual purpose ship, but it was never called to service as a troop ship. So in 57, I saw the ship. Finally, I gave up being able to ever shoot on it, except I got a call from the Maritime Administration after I'd given up, and they said, "Hey, if you really want to shoot on that ship, the BBC is coming down next Tuesday. Be here." And I borrowed my mentor Jane's cameras, and I went down to Norfolk, Virginia, where it was hidden behind a coal dock, although you could see the funnels for 10 miles. So the largest funnels ever put on a ship.
When you say funnels, just visually, so our listeners can get an idea.
Those are like the big
talking about those big
Smokestacks.
smokestacks, right? Like when you say 1, 2, 3, those big. That's what you're talking about, right?
Yes, it had the 2 biggest smokestacks ever put on any vessel. They were like 6 stories tall, and I don't know how wide, but you could put 12 cars inside one. They were just removed, by the way, for its scuttling, which is about to happen early next year, maybe. We don't really know the answer. I mean, we think it's going to be reefed to be a reef, but there are a lot of people that are trying to make that not happen.
I saw on the conservatory website the mock-up of a museum, a potential museum.
Yes. Yeah, which is a beautiful concept. The people who are doing that just redid the Empire State Building's observatory, and it's a museum that features the funnels, which have been saved, and the radar mast in the right proportions so you can get a sense of how big the ship is. Because seeing pictures or movies of this ship do not do it justice. When you see this ship, no matter how many movies you've seen, you just go, oh my God, wow. And so when I went back in 75 to film it, I wondered if it would still strike me the way it did when I was a little kid. And it did exactly the same thing. It blew me away. And so I followed that ship for my whole filmmaking career. I thought I was the only person on earth that remembered it until the internet happened and I met Mark B. Perry, who's an A-list TV writer in LA, who's a bigger ship geek than I am by a lot. In fact, his house is so full of the artifacts from the ship. If his house could float, we wouldn't have to do anything with the ship. Anyway, Mark and I hit it off. I told him I had slides and movie film from 1975 of the ship before it was stripped of all its accoutrements. It was mid-century modern inside. And he wanted to see that footage. Turns out my mom threw away the footage because it somehow was bothering her in the basement of her house. But we kept the slides, and they are in the films you've seen and will be in the final film, Superliner.
So this is basically a lifelong passion project for you.
It absolutely is, and the film is going to have a lot of heart because honestly, it just kills me what's happening to the ship. I mean, we came so close to saving it. A company called RXR that redoes skyscrapers. They do great big projects like this, or the TWA terminal at LaGuardia, I believe it was. They redid that in some incredible fashion. We had the money. We had the hotel company that was going to do the hotel space inside it, and we came this close to bringing it back as a static attraction in New York on the west side, right where it should be, next to the Intrepid, which is where it sailed from. But because Mario Cuomo, who was a fan of this, was out as governor, and the new governor that came in, we could not get her attention. It just died. That and COVID just killed the project. And it was litigation in Philadelphia where the ship was docked that caused us to have to move the ship off of that pier. They were going to take ownership of the ship and scuttle it and scrap it unless we got it out of there in 3 months. And the pier owner is who killed the ship. So we had to move it, and there was no place to put a 1,000-foot-long ship that's as deep as the SS United States. Ocean liners are much deeper than cruise ships. So the only takers were Okaloosa County in Florida, who wanted it as part of their dive park. And this will be a major attraction. I mean, I got to say, those guys in Okaloosa, they're good people, and they figured out how to make money with what's left of the ship. So they're taking it apart and cleaning it up so it can be theoretically non-toxically sunk and not too deep so that novice divers will be able to get to it. But the funnels had to come off because ships would be hitting them in where they want to place it. So yeah, we're right in the middle of that, figuring out how to cover the sinking of a 1,000-foot liner on our little budget.
And when
No, it's basically just so I can wrap my head around this. The first time I heard this, I immediately thought about when they sink the decommissioned New York subway cars. I was like, oh, is this kind of the same thing to get the reefs, And then I also asked, I was like, whatever happened with that project?
Yeah, I don't know about the New York project, but in Okaloosa, in Destin, Fort Walton Beach, that's where it's going to be, and kind of near Pensacola too, about 20 miles out, is where the museum will be, so that the people who dive it will know what it is they're diving. Because 4 presidents, Marilyn Monroe, Bob Hope.
That was the list of A-listers that were sailing on that ship during its heydays. It was like the place to be. Everybody was there.
It was like the Titanic.
Yeah,
but
it was, except it was air conditioned. The first ship that'd be air conditioned. It got there in 3 days instead of 6. And they had microwaves. It was the first use of microwaves. The serial number on the microwaves was like 00001.
Wow.
And it had so many firsts that it's really extraordinary, and it's really a shame. It's like, to me, it's like sinking the Statue of Liberty or the Empire State Building. and it says something to me about what's been lost in this country. And that's
Mhm.
kind of a sub theme of my movie. And
Yeah.
not everybody wants to hear this, and maybe not everybody in the Conservancy wants to either. But I feel that the can-do attitude that made that ship possible has largely been lost in America. And I'd like to see it come back. And if seeing this film about what happens when Americans all put their minds and hearts together has any influence, maybe it'll help us be more proud of who we are and more friendly with each other going forward.
Well, we have links for the viewers and listeners. The show notes, I have links to all the stuff that's available to see now and the Conservancy website. But what do you have an expected date, or what will happen with this final Superliner installment of the series?
Well, a whole heck of a lot has to do when they finally sink it.
Right.
And I'm not in charge of that, nor is anybody else. It's the
Sure.
EPA, it's the Coast Guard, and it's a lot of other factors, the weather.
Right.
And it's how they're going to do it. And I'm not sure they're 1,000% sure of exactly how they're going to do it without explosives, although people are working on that. One of the really interesting characters in the new movie Superliner is the man, Tim Mullane, who's sinking the ship. He's like a curmudgeon, and everybody says, "Oh, he's such a prick," and
Mhm.
you really got to interview this guy, and his wife is worse. But
Oh,
I
wow.
did, and he's really an interesting guy, and he's sharp as hell, and he's one of the few people who know how to sink 1,000-foot liner and have it
Right.
land upright and so on. So that'll be done, I'm guessing February, March, but I wouldn't promise that.
Right.
And then it's going to take me a few months to put it all together. I'm literally editing it myself, and I have something like 14 or 15 terabytes of footage. I have the entire life of the ship archivally, and the home movies that were made on the ship. Mark Perry, my partner on this and on Lady in Waiting, has been collecting the home movies and buying them off of YouTube. I
Wow.
have a riches like you wouldn't believe. So the hard part is how I'm going to get this down into 90 minutes. And there's talk about doing
Sounds like a 3-part Netflix series to me.
that is entirely possible. We'll just have to see.
Yeah. Yeah.
I like the eyebrow action. Yeah. A little Groucho going on there. Yeah. And don't ask me for what date because I'm literally editing it by myself. But I hope we make a deal with Netflix or somebody like that. We have a little more money and I can bring on a real experienced assistant editor to work with me to wrap it up. But
Sure.
right now, I have 35 sequences, like with titles like How I Got Hooked or The Decay or
Right.
Hopes for Her Future, The Saviors. It's a great big story and it's going to be a lot of fun.
It's amazing. Dude, I'm so glad that you answered my LinkedIn request, and I'm just really super honored to have you on the show, and it's just been great, man. It's
Thank you
just
so
been
much
really
for coming
great.
on. This was awesome.
No worries. This shit is fun.
Yeah, it is. Dude, some of the stories hysterical.
Right? I was going to say, when we log off, I have a very similar story to your Sunny story about somebody else, but I won't tell it on air because I have respect for Guy Code.
There we go.
And you probably get sued.
Yeah, that too. So
right,
thank
well-
you so much, and that's it, man.
Yeah, this was awesome. Thanks so much.
Great. Thank you so much for coming on.
I hope I filled in some of your questions.
Film Fights with Friends is produced by Stephen Kepfer, Paul Veracci, Press Record Studios, and Breakball Studios. This episode was engineered by Matthew Kaplowitz. This show is powered by our supporters at Patreon and is a registered trademark of Film Fights with Friends LLC. Original theme by Aru Luster.